I'm back. I'm alive. I've just about recovered from what was an absolutely incredible 3 days in Italy, in Milan. Absolutely fantastic. My first ever experience of following Newcastle United in the Champions League, and it's one that I will never forget, and it's only added to my thirst and my hunger to get over to Dortmund for the next one. But there was actually a football match. My match vlogs might have just showed most of the crazy stuff in and around the football game, but there was our first match in the San Siro. What did we learn from it? This video is probably coming a little bit later than I'd planned, but I've just managed to get my head out my arse. Let's talk about that amazing night in the San Siro in a little bit more detail. So if you're curious, do us a favour, Newcastle fans, and make sure you stick around. Welcome back to the Black and White Banter, Newcastle fans. No, don't worry, it hasn't rubbed off us. I'm not going to talk like that all the way through this video. But, yes, as I said at the start, I am back safe and sound. I'm probably sitting on this video in body, but not probably in mind. I haven't quite pulled myself round just yet. Things got a little bit crazy, to say the least. But I've just caught up with my mum upon returning home. Didn't tell her that. Told her quite the opposite. Alright, ma'am. Yeah, I'm back safe and sound. You don't need to worry. I'm back in one piece. Oh, it was good. Yeah. What did I get up to? Oh, just the usual. Obviously, apart from the football match, just soaked up the Milan culture. A bit of pizza, a bit of coffee. Saw some sights. Yeah, it was really chilled. Really chilled. Yeah, just chilled. So, anyway, Newcastle fans, if you are new around here, do us a favour, give us a like you do, or if you're not new, you should know by now that that's what you need to do to get this video in front of more people. And if you like my opinion by the end of this one, drop down and whack that subscribe. So yeah, how would I sum up AC Milan away? Milan with 4,500 of the Geordies for a couple of nights. I think the only word that comes to mind is absolutely incredible. And that's 2 words. You can have 2 words. Incredible. It was. It really was. Everyone drinking together. Everyone having a good time together. It almost felt like a bit of a party atmosphere because it was our first game back in Europe. And that Champions League was such an incredible moment when we clinched it last year. That Milan was the first one. I've got no doubts about it. Dortmund will be a good away day. Paris Saint-Germain, Paris, I'm not so sure. But the first one I always thought was going to be the most special. And I know a lot of Newcastle fans weren't able to make Milan because it was the shortest turnaround. Flight prices were ridiculous. People couldn't get the time off work. It was a 2-week notice period. But it was one I never wanted to miss because I knew it would have that little bit of something different. Also, the weather. I don't think the other 2 away matches in November are going to be quite as nice as the glorious sunshine we saw down by the canal on match day on Tuesday. So, yeah, if you haven't already watched my match vlogs from my arriving in Milan all the way through to the game itself, drop down and give them a watch. The comments, the interactions I've had because of Black and White Banter, people are talking to me on these trips about my channel. It's great. And some of the comments I've had more recently are absolutely wonderful. As I said on my last video, I'll always be a fan first. I just like to take you along on the ride with me on them sorts of trips, but also give my opinions. And then I'll try and do videos like this that are a little bit more in depth about our football club that we love so much. So, it was a hard-earned point. It was. We leave our first game and we start the group. 1 game in the Champions League, 0 goals conceded. 0 defeats, 1 on the board. That's not a bad old start. We have just gone to the 7-time winning AC Milan in one of the most iconic stadiums in the world with a team of players who've never even dreamt about playing in the Champions League in the cases of some of them out there. Murphy, who started, Dan Burn, Sean Longstaff, Callum Wilson, some of these players, it's dreamland stuff. Sorry, I know Callum Wilson didn't start, before anyone gets smart in the comments. But you know what I'm saying. We went over there massively inexperienced. I've got no doubts about it. It was an emotional night. Eddie Howe said that in his press conference since. And we didn't have to bad. But, as I always do on these videos, what were the main points to talk about? This is the last word, unofficially, because it's a Champions League edition. First up has to be, for me, that defensive wall. All the way back from Nick Pope, who I thought was brilliant, with the amount of saves he had to make in such a difficult spell in the game when we were really under the cosh. Yes, we could have been absolutely battered on another day if AC Milan had been more clinical. No one is going to shy away from that as much as we might like to. But what I think we proved on Tuesday is that some of that fantastic defensive grit that we knew so well last season, that matched Man City for the best defence in the league, was on show on Tuesday. Because there has been some doubts this season. We saw what happened at Brighton in our last away game. Piss poor. I know Botman was missing for that one. Liverpool, we conceded a couple of sloppy goals in the last 10 minutes to concede that game. And there has just been a few question marks. What I saw on Tuesday was a fantastic level of organisation. I saw fantastic discipline. But what I liked the most was bodies getting flung left, right and centre, put on the line for the sake of our football club in our first Champions League match. And that can only be a positive. I thought Kieran Trippier, upon reflection, was absolutely magnificent. He really did reek in that game of a player who's been there. He's done it. He's played in the Champions League. He's played in the top matches. And he was going to do everything in his power to not only lead the rest of his defence, but inspire the rest of his team with some of his latch-ditch tackles, his running, his energy, his reading of the game. And we know how good Sven Botman is. We don't even need to talk about that. I thought Dan Burn on his first Champions League outing at left-back, which might have caused a few eyebrows when the team was announced, didn't do much wrong. I honestly don't think he did. I think he'll be relatively happy with his performance. But to know that defence that we loved so much last year, that everybody was talking about around Europe, is still there in abundance in one of the hardest places that defence will go this season, was nice to see. And that was such a huge positive in a game where our backs were up against the wall a little bit, massively. So that's got to be my first big plus. Number 2 has to be Mr. Bruno Guimaraes. There's been lots and lots of question marks, and I think rightly so. No matter what anyone says, it has been okay to say something, not negative, but criticise Bruno this season for some of his performances in our opening Premier League games. He hasn't been at the races. He hasn't been the Bruno we know. Has anyone really put the finger on why? No. Is it because Tonali and him are playing too much of a similar position, and Tonali is the one taking the ascendancy in terms of being the one who gets forward, leaving Bruno just as a sitting midfielder? Maybe. Is it contract talks? Maybe. Is it concerns about these Brazil matches that were upcoming? He didn't want to get injured? Maybe. There's so many different possibilities. Or is it just the fact that Newcastle haven't been playing as well this season? Maybe. But what we saw on Tuesday was the Bruno does not have any issues with his performances, because I thought he was well up for Tuesday's game. I thought he was a lot better. I thought he was comfortable with the ball. And it just gives me a bit of comfort in the knowledge that we aren't necessarily looking at a Bruno who is consistently playing really, really bad to a concerning level. I am not sitting here saying that Bruno was fantastic on Tuesday. I don't think he was. I thought if any of our midfielders were fantastic, it was Sean Longstaff. I thought the work that he put in. But after the performances he had for Brazil, where he, across the 2 matches, he got an assist for the winning goal. In the second game, he played well against Bolivia. I think he got an assist in that one when they won 5-1. To come off the back of them positive performances, then put in a better performance against Brentford, which I thought he was in the second half. He really, really was. I talked about that in the videos from the aftermath of Saturday's game. And then go to the San Siro and put a shift in. Maybe we are starting to turn the corner with what we might start seeing from Bruno. And if that is the case, that'll just add more questions to what the hell's happened in the first 3 or 4 matches. But long may that continue. And I was relatively happy with him. Next up for me has to be our attacking, and I feel like this is becoming a common talking point on every video I'm doing, and that's concerning me the most. I don't like to be blunt on these videos because we were at the San Siro in probably our hardest match this season. Well, it was our hardest match this season. You could maybe argue Man City because they're the treble winners, quadruple winners, but we are looking quite clueless in attack. And clueless is a word I don't like to use, and I want to reiterate that. But when we got the ball, in the times that we did, mainly in the second half, in positive areas, we are lacking so much quality, rhythm, and just structure to any of our attacking play. And I am getting alarmingly concerned in our lack of testing goalkeepers so far this season. Apart from Longstaff, my God, when he almost pinched it at the end. Oh, I still have dirty dreams about if that had gone in. We didn't test the AC Milan goalkeeper at all. And I didn't expect us to much in the game, but did I expect us to do it a little bit more than what was a 94th minute shot? Yes. From the areas we got in, I expected a little bit more. Almiron picked the ball up in good areas and then it fizzled out. I thought the left-hand side, Gordon, full of endeavour, full of running. He's not creating anything. And Isak at the moment, it's worth mentioning that his goal record now for us, and I'm not saying it's his fault, is getting worse and worse and worse as the weeks are going on. I read that some people said Isak, I think Eddie Howe actually said Isak played well at AC Milan on Tuesday. I don't agree with that. I'm not saying it was his fault. I think he was isolated, but I thought we looked better when Callum Wilson came on in the type of game that it was. And I just think how isolated Isak is looking, bearing in mind how much of a quality footballer he is. I've got no doubts. There was no flash in the pan last season. Isak is a fantastic footballer. That's not helping with our lack of chances created. And I'm watching it, and every single time we are getting the ball in dangerous areas, we don't have that cohesion and that rhythm that we had last season. And I've actually spent some time watching our goals back, because I'm a total sado, that we scored last season, to try and figure out in my head what we're lacking. And I do honestly believe it's just that link-up between our first three midfielders and our second three, and the final three midfielders, our wingers and striker, just aren't clicking as they did last year when we had like Joe Linton and Willock on the left, which was so effective. We've got no ball carriers at the moment with Joe Linton and Willock both out. We're trying to find a balance between Gordon and Barnes, which Eddie Howe is still tinkering with. I think it's a mixture of Eddie Howe trying to bed in new players, and that's Gordon included, by the way, who was such a big part last season, and us just not playing with the same intensity. And maybe that stems from those new players. I don't know, but it's worrying me. It is, and I don't mean to be negative after a great Champions League away point. But going into Sheffield United on Sunday, I'm struggling to see where we're just going to suddenly start firing on all cylinders and banging goals in left, right and centre. Is it confidence? Is it that mixed team? I don't know. But after that result, that was a concern for me. And I think my final point from Tuesday's game is we have to take into consideration with the rest of this Champions League campaign that emotions are going to play a part. I think what we saw on Tuesday was a Newcastle team who literally did give everything, but our performances might be hindered a little bit by that lack of experience in the competition. And maybe that falls into how lack of attack and quality that we had on Tuesday. Maybe it falls into that, because the likes of your Murphys, your Dan Burns, your Longstaffs, your Fabian Schär to a degree, your Nick Pope, you can go through so many players where this Champions League campaign, not only is it a dream come true, but it is absolutely nerve-wracking. And I think we will play with a bit of fear in matches. I don't expect us to blow teams away at St James's Park, because no matter how many times some of these passionate lads who love this football club hear that Champions League music when they stood lined up, it will always get a lump in the throat. Whereas PSG players, Dortmund players and AC Milan players, it's very normal for them. They are used to it. Their fans are used to it. And I think we have to take that into consideration. We've started the group with an absolutely solid point, and I was so proud of the lads when we waited back all that time at the end of the match. I really, really was. But maybe we have to just be a little bit more patient as fans, because St James's Park, as much as it can be the best place on earth to play your football, it can also be one of the most impatient and one of the very, very, very quickly hardest places to play your football. These lads are going to make mistakes in these matches. These lads are probably not going to play with the freedom they'd play with if they were playing against Burnley at home on a Saturday afternoon. It's a different kettle of fish. We got through it on Tuesday with a fantastic start to the group. But let's just see where this campaign takes us. We shouldn't have too many high expectations, but emotions are going to be important. I'm still recovering from what was an amazing trip. I'm not gonna lie. I had the lump in my throat when the music was playing. There was a moment when I was stood and the music came on, and myself and my friends, if you're watching this, Aaron, Scott, you might be watching this, you maybe not. We all just kind of looked at each other. We didn't say anything to each other. We just looked at each other when the Champions League music was playing, and it was a really fitting moment for me as that lump just grew bigger and bigger in my throat, that it's exactly nights like Tuesday night, no matter how much my flights were, no matter all the stupid travel I had to do, getting the dog looked after, it's exactly what you live for as a football fan, and it makes you realise how much your football club means to you. My God. Newcastle United is everything for me, and Tuesday was incredible. And I hope every fan watching on the telly felt the same. I hope every fan who travelled over to Milan felt exactly the same. But Newcastle fans, this is a bit later in the week than I expected it to be, but I didn't want to let Champions League night pass without talking about it in a bit more depth. And there's plenty time for a Sheffield United match preview to come on. It's not as if I've got a social life. Recording videos is pretty much all I do, apart from taking Mags out for a walk. So let me know your thoughts in the comments on Champions League Night 1. What were your main things to take away from it? Maybe more positives than what I said, maybe more negatives. Let me know in the comments. And if you've liked this video, Newcastle fans, drop down, give us a little likey loo, and give us a little subscribe as well. I'm going to go and eat some more spaghetti and pasta. No, I'm not really. I've had enough spaghetti and pasta to last me the next couple of months. I'm going to go and eat something British. Ham and peas pudding sarnie with a can of Carlin. That's what I'm going to go and have. And I'll see you on the next video, because the games are coming thick and fast. Sheffield United away on Sunday. Away the lads!